The neon lights of the stellar drift bar flickered in rhythm with the bass that pulsed through the station's entertainment district. Laura clutched her drink, watching the Krillian ambassador butcher a popular Terran pop song with 3 of his 4 mouths, while the 4th gasped for air. "Come on, you have to go up there," George urged, nudging her shoulder. His brown eyes sparkled with the kind of mischief that had gotten them both into trouble during their academy days. "You've been nursing that drink for an hour." "I don't do karaoke," Laura muttered, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The bar was packed with beings from across the galaxy. Vryn traders with their crystalline exoskeletons, Thorgon engineers comparing cybernetic implants, and a surprising number of grizzled veterans from species she couldn't even name. "Since when?" George leaned back in his chair, which protested under his frame. "You sang at the graduation ceremony, made half the class cry." "That was different. That was formal. This is—" She gestured at the stage where the Krillian was now attempting to hit notes that didn't exist in his vocal range. "Chaos." George opened his mouth to respond when the MC, a 6-armed hexid with bioluminescent skin, announced the next slot was open. Before Laura could protest, George's hand shot up. "We've got one," he called out. Laura's eyes went wide. "George, I swear to—" "Too late. You're up." She wanted to kill him, but the crowd was already applauding politely, and the MC was gesturing toward the stage. Laura stood on trembling legs, her diplomatic training the only thing keeping her from fleeing. She'd faced down hostile delegations, negotiated trade agreements worth trillions, but this was terrifying. As she climbed onto the small stage, the holographic display offered her the standard catalog, 10,000 songs from 100 worlds. Her finger hovered over a safe choice, something in galactic common that everyone knew. But then she saw it, buried in the archived section, flagged with a historical marker. Ancient Terran Collection. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Never forget where we came from, Laura. Never forget what we survived." She selected the file. The opening notes filled the bar, and the chatter died immediately. It wasn't the synthesized music that captured their attention. It was the haunting, ancient quality of the melody. Laura took a breath and began to sing in Latin, a language dead for over 2,000 years, yet preserved in humanity's most solemn ceremonies. "Dies irae, dies illa." Her voice rose, clear and powerful, carrying words that once echoed through Earth's darkest age, the day of wrath, the requiem. She didn't know why she'd chosen it, only that it felt right. These were the words humans had sung when faced with extinction, when plague and war had reduced Earth to cinders before the Great Reclamation. George's jaw had dropped. Around the bar, beings who'd been laughing moments before sat in absolute silence. "Solvet seclum in favilla." A Vryn near the back suddenly stood, his crystalline body rigid at attention. His 3-fingered hand moved to his chest in what Laura recognized as a military salute. Then another rose, a Thorgon veteran, optical sensors gleaming as he brought his cybernetic arm up in formal respect. Laura's voice wavered for just a moment. What was happening? But she continued, the ancient words pouring from her as more aliens stood. A Krillian general, decorations covering all 4 of his shoulders. A hexid commander, all 6 arms crossed over her chest. Even the bartender, a usually surly draconid, had straightened behind the counter, head bowed. George remained seated, but she could see tears streaming down his face. He understood. Somehow, they all understood. Lacrimosa dies illa, the day of tears. The song of a species that had died and been reborn. Every species in this bar had their own apocalypse story, their own near-extinction event. The Vryn had survived their son's death, the Thorgons had escaped their world's collapse, the Krillians had endured the plague years. But only humanity sang about it in the language of the dead themselves. As Laura reached the final verse, Every veteran in the bar, and she realized now they were all veterans, drawn to this corner of the station like moths to flame, stood at attention. Different salutes, different traditions, but the same respect, the same recognition of survival against impossible odds. Pi Jesu Domine, dona eis requiem, amen. The last note faded. Silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then the applause began. Not the polite clapping of a karaoke bar, but the thunderous appreciation of warriors honoring warriors. The Vryn general approached first, his translator speaking in crisp standard. "I fought beside human regiments in the Epsilon campaign," he said, his crystalline face somehow conveying emotion. "I watched you lose 3 colonies and sing at every funeral. I never knew. It was the same song, the same death language. Your species sings of extinction as easily as mine breathes." A Thorgon placed a heavy metal hand on Laura's shoulder. "We thought humans were reckless, fearless. Now I understand. You're not unafraid of death. You've died before, collectively. You remember it in your bones, in your dead tongues." Laura looked out at the sea of faces, alien and strange and united in this moment. George had finally stood, wiping his eyes, grinning like an idiot. "It's just a song," she said softly. "No," the Hexid commander replied, all 6 arms still crossed in salute. "It's a promise. That extinction is not the end. That what dies can be remembered. That the dead languages still carry truth." The MC approached, bioluminescence pulsing in what Laura had learned to recognize as awe. "In 30 years of running this bar, I've never seen every veteran stand. Whatever you sang, thank you." Laura descended from the stage, legs still shaking, and George caught her in a fierce hug. "I hate you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he replied. Behind them, the veterans were buying rounds, swapping stories in a dozen languages, some living, some dead, all remembered. And in the heart of a space station millions of light years from Earth, humanity's requiem became a bridge between species who knew what it meant to survive. The next performer, a young draconid barely old enough to be in the bar, selected his song with new reverence. The karaoke continued, but something had shifted. The stellar drift bar would remember this night. They all would.